Welcome, teacher friend. I'm Lori.
And I'm Melissa.
We are two literacy educators in Baltimore. We want the best for all kids, and we know
Our district adopted a new literacy curriculum meant a lot for everyone. Lori and I can't wait learning about literacy. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We are really excited today because today we have a couple of people from the Baltimore campaign for grade level reading. And it's really exciting because we have talked a whole lot about how districts are adopting new curriculum and what districts are doing for improving literacy. But the grade level reading campaign really is outside of our district, but is a super helpful support. So today we have Angelique Jessup and Ruth Farfel from the Baltimore campaign for grade level reading. Lori, you want to introduce them?
Yes. Hi, everyone. So Angelique is the program director at the Baltimore campaign for grade level reading, and Ruth is the program associate. We are really excited to have them here today, again, because of that family connection and community connection. And this is something that we've been just really pumped for our listeners to hear about how the community is providing wraparound supports for curriculum implementation and what that looks like. So they're going to share a little bit about that. But first, Angelique and Ruth, would you mind sharing a little bit about yourselves and then just an overview of grade level reading?
Sure. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
So the Baltimore campaign for grade level reading, we are part of a larger organization called the Fund for Educational Excellence. Most people locally know us as the Fund. And the Fund partners with Baltimore City Public Schools, funders, communities, and other nonprofits to really help create a school system where all 80,000 students reach their full potential. We specifically work on the Baltimore campaign for grade level reading. And what we do is we bring together different community partners and agencies to come and to work together, all with the purpose of promoting early literacy for grades K through third. And the campaign focuses on providing literacy resources to families, and we seek to help the school district share ways for families to get involved in their child's reading development. All for the sole purpose of making sure that all kids in Baltimore City Public Schools are reading on grade level by the end of third grade. And I would also say that over the past year to year and a half, we really deepened our focus to make sure that we are doing work and doing projects that are very much centered on family and community engagement. There's a lot happening in Baltimore. I don't know if you've talked about it in the other episodes in the podcast, but for those who aren't from Baltimore that are listening, there's been a lot of investment around literacy. There's a big strategic focus called the Blueprint for Success, and some really great work happening instructionally in the classroom, and wit and wisdom being a huge component of that. And we really wanted to make sure that students and families had something outside of the classroom too, that link of what happens beyond the bell. And we firmly believe that engagement and what happens at home is a key academic strategy too.
And I think most of our listeners probably know how important it is to be on grade level by the end of third grade. But can you guys talk a little bit about just how important that is?
Melissa's sounding like a primary educator, isn't she, when she says that?
You would think I know what I'm talking about.
Right? She's learned so much. Go ahead.
So I'm actually a mom of a third grader, so I'm living this now. So third grade is a very critical point for whenever students really delve into deeper content. And after third grade, there's not as much of a focus instructionally on teaching the child how to read, but becoming a more fluent reader, going deeper into content. And there's kind of like the old adage, they go from learning to read to reading to learn. But for our students that aren't reading proficiently by the end of third grade, it puts them at a greater risk for not graduating from high school, not pursuing post-secondary education, which feeds into, more life outcomes that we don't want for our kids. So it's a critical turning point for kind of them to to move on the right trajectory to continue to excel and improve. I think Ruth had one more thing she wanted to say.
Yeah,
Great.
go ahead, Ruth.
So I just wanted to add, what's really important for us at the fund, as well as grade level reading, is really elevating the voices of community and families, making sure that whatever they want to share and feel their experience with Baltimore City schools and just having children and students, we want to elevate those voices and make sure that we're hearing what they say and really implementing things that are relevant to what's important to them.
Yes, thank you for saying that, Ruth, because something that I think we believe collectively as an organization is that the answers are right here in Baltimore, and to honor the voices of those who are living in Baltimore to inform our work and to help really push solutions.
Yeah. And so you actually get to hear from families and community pretty often. What have you heard from them, maybe in the past year or two since we've adopted Wit and Wisdom, or even before then?
Right. So about a little bit before the actual formal adoption of Wit and Wisdom, whenever the district was kind of going out and having community conversations around, we're investigating different literacy curriculums. Grade level reading was also going out in the community. Something that we realized was missing was that there weren't enough, in our opinion, literacy materials that were accessible for families in our city. So if families needed to know beyond pre-K, what are the milestones that their child should be hitting for literacy, whether they're on track or not on track. We didn't feel like there was a place to point them to, and being the Baltimore Campaign for Grade Level Reading, we believe that should be, part of our organization and the work that we do is to really bring together partners and communities and get resources out to families. We said, hey, this is work that we really need to double down, and we need to make sure that there's more literacy information and resources for families, not just around milestones and whether their child is on track or not on track, but they can do at home. We had done quite a bit with different marketing efforts around the importance of daily reading, and we thought that the next step, the next evolution to that is going deeper into making that connection with what they can learn at home that builds on what happened in the classroom. But we also, like what Ruth said, we thought that we had to go out to the community and find out what was on their minds, what were they experiencing. So we did a series of focus groups in the spring and early summer of 2018. And we had some relationships with some schools. So we said, hey, we'd love to talk to your families who have kids in grades K through second grade. And we talked to almost 80 families, and, reflecting on it now, what was really special was some of the stories that we heard from families. When you have focus groups and there were, no more than 8 to 10 families there on average, you could have some really, personal conversations and hear about what their experiences was. And what we learned from the families was that a lot of them were having a lot of conversations with their child's teacher or, other adults in the building. So we'd hear families talking to us about, like, I come to the school every day. I drop off my child. We're not a city where there's a whole bunch of bus service. So you have families that are actually physically going into school and, saying hi to their kindergarten or first grade teacher and having conversations. And they said they're having lots of conversations, but when we questioned and we got deeper in the questioning, we learned that those conversations are quite a bit about behavior. And that honestly saddened us. So we would talk more to the families. We say, well, what is it that you're doing at home? Like, how do you know what's happening with your child around literacy instruction? What do you know about whether they're on track or not on track? And they're like, I get that information from the parent teacher conference, but what I try to do is I try to, Google or YouTube. So we learned that there are these informal ways that families are trying to be entrepreneurial in a sense to get information about what their child was learning. And we had teachers in the room with some of those focus groups because they wanted to know what their families are hearing. And some teachers were like, wow, this is really helpful information for me. I did not realize, unbeknownst to me, I wasn't doing this on purpose. I haven't been giving them I haven't been giving them information as much as what I'm hearing from them that they desire with, what's happening with phonics instruction, or what kind of questions I should be asking my child whenever we're having dinner conversations. I mean, it's hard to have conversations with your child. I mean, it happens to me all the time. Like, I ask my kid, how was your day? Good. Like, I know I've read somewhere that me asking
Good.
questions, but that was really interesting. And something that stuck with us too was that we started seeing informal parent networks happening during these focus groups. So imagine a room and you have 8 to 10 families, and you might have 2 gen, you might have, grandparents there and parents. And invariably there'd be somebody who had more information, like, hey, did you know that you can sign up for Infinite Campus and you can get your child's assessment reports? Oh no, I didn't know that I could do that. Well, yeah, how do you do that? Well, you need to do X, Y, and Z. So it was kind of the beginning of our journey too, where, this happened a year and a half ago. We are continuously astounded by the families in Baltimore. I mean, I know there's definitely a lot of a narrative around the city about how resilient our kids are, but I would also say that what we'd want to push in grade level reading too is that we have some amazing families in the city, some parents and grandparents and everything in between that are so invested in their child's success. And are doing some creative things that, frankly, as a mom of 3, inspire me to keep up my game. So, going back to the focus groups back in 2018, those are the biggest takeaways for us. That there's a lot that was happening. There's a lot of communication that's happening, but we need to start to move the needle so that more of the conversation, more of the information, more of the sharing and the relationship building is around what's happening academically with the child, and not just what's happening with classroom management and behavior. And then in terms of wit and wisdom, this past summer, we went back out in the field and we took a different approach. We decided that we wanted to really try to find out what was happening in the community. So we talked to parents and family members that were enrolling their enrolling their children during summer rush. Because we have like a lot of mobility in our district. So we went to where they register. It was kind of like sitting in the DMV and interviewing parents. We went to a laundromat in the southwest part of the city. And then we went to the summer learning, the young audience summer learning, a summer program, and we did a parent focus group where we did a breakfast. And in that conversation, we wanted to know specifically about wit and wisdom. And there were a couple really, really big takeaways. I think the first big takeaway is that they weren't knowledgeable. There was a new curriculum. So that first thing we realized was okay, we need to boost this information campaign to let people know that there's this really great curriculum and there's some interesting things that you can do with it and how you can connect with your child. And we talked to them specifically, we're not literacy experts. We'll leave that up to you guys. We wanted to talk to them about the parent tip sheets because, you guys know that Wit and Wisdom has some companion materials, a tip sheet that's designed in theory for families to be able to know what's happening, what their kids are reading, what kind of questions they're asking in class, and to engage them in conversation. So I'm gonna let Ruth chime in a little bit because we did this together as a team, but one of the biggest takeaways was that they don't know, and also that the tip sheets actually weren't giving them the type of tips that they desired. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. So during our focus groups, we learned a ton about how parents want to get information and what information they want. And one of our biggest takeaways was that the tip sheets as they are now are more information sheets. There's a lot of information on it, sometimes hard to digest, even if you're into the literacy realm. And so one of the things that parents and families share with us was that they want actual activities they can do at home with their children, things that to reinforce skills at home. They specifically want ways to support around comprehension because they realize that's a big issue for their kids and they want to be able to support that. And so we heard across the board this summer that they really, really want those quick, easy ways to be able to reinforce those skills through activities at home. So we have a group of teachers right now that we're working with to help support those activities. We're hoping to bring in some parents. And so our next step is to really build that up.
That's awesome. we haven't talked about this, so I don't know exactly what that work group is working on, but I hope it might be something similar to this, which is the thing I love about Wit and Wisdom is that, I wouldn't want parents to necessarily have to go and like work on main idea with their children at home. And that's not exactly how Wit and Wisdom teaches either, right? We're talking more about this idea of building knowledge with this curriculum, and that knowledge that you're building and vocabulary that comes from having that knowledge will really actually improve their comprehension more than something that seems like more like, what you do in school.
Like a worksheet.
Yeah. And I also think those are super fun things that parents could do with their child and not even have to they don't have to say that they're doing it to increase comprehension, right? They just can do those things. So like I'm thinking of the Under the Sea unit, which is in our 3rd grade, I believe, Lori, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep.
And like we have the National Aquarium, like going to the aquarium could be great. But also even, that could be a little expensive, but they could go to the library and get some books or videos about, the sea and things like that. So I think that they're kind of easier, fun ways that parents could really be involved and actually make a huge difference.
Yeah, I think it's great because Melissa, you brought that up. What I hadn't thought about prior to this was shifting parents' mindsets on what it looks like to support their kids at home. And I think that could look like, as a parent, I'm focused on, the topics that they're learning about. And I ask lots of questions about that. And I could see myself going to the library and getting books about it, but and providing those experiences. But I don't always think about maybe pulling up a YouTube video, whereas another parent might be doing that to build knowledge, which is awesome. So there's all these different ways that we could provide parents ideas to build knowledge on the topics. And that really would just create some incredible bonding time with their kiddos while they're learning about these topics. And then they have so much stuff to talk about, at home. And that would really be an incredible way to build their knowledge on topics and thus increasing their kids' comprehension on these topics in school. So that's a great point, Melissa. I'm glad you brought that up about the idea of, I know you didn't explicitly say it, but that's what I internalized, shifting the parent mindset of what it means to support with comprehension to building knowledge versus isolated skills. So really thinking about that integrated approach.
Yeah, we've been thinking a lot about that too. With you talk about the importance of oral language development quite a bit whenever they're 3 and from 0 to 3, right? But that the conversations and oral language and what you do, those type of things you do with your kid, it shouldn't stop. So we've been thinking about how that can be kind of lifted up with tips and that we give families, especially since we become also increasingly more sensitive that we have families in our city that have different levels of literacy proficiency themselves. And we don't want families to be to be turned off in any way with engaging with their children or grandchildren if they are struggling in any way with their literacy. So we're thinking about like videos and YouTube and how to communicate this information.
That's awesome. I love that you're meeting parents and families and really like building communities just right where they are. I love that you did that like literally by going to where they were in the community, like the DMV. I mean, not really the DMV, but you were like, when they came into the DMV, you were there when they were coming in to register, to really meet them, to see where they were. And then also being really cognizant that it might not look like reading a library book with their 5th grader. It might look different. But all of these ways are incredible assets to build knowledge. So thank you for doing that. I think your work is very special.
We're trying. I mean, but it's we really, we have a village. It's not just us two. Yeah. Something that's come up with working with the teachers is we're leaning in the direction probably of trying to offer a menu to families with Wit and Wisdom, because every family is different. You go through different seasons too of things that are happening in your life and what you might have more time for than others. Bedtime routines and everything need to be factored in, and we don't want these tips and the communication to just feel like homework. We want it to be we want it to just to be integrated into your normal habits.
Yeah. So do you ever host any family workshops or anything to that effect?
So we don't directly host family workshops, but we have provided materials and tools for schools and other organizations to do it. So a couple of years ago, we worked with with Baltimore City Public Schools, a literacy office, and the Family and Community Engagement Office to develop kind of like a family literacy night toolkit. We teamed up with the district on a grant that I honestly forget the name of the grant, but we we had an idea of like how can we all team up as partners in the work. So the engagement office and the literacy office really worked in tandem with us to create the content for what a really nice literacy night could look like at a school, and engagement helped with how to market it and how to really bring in different partners. So because we know lots of schools do literacy nights, but we said, hey, what would it look like if we actually had a soup to nuts toolkit with different with how-tos and templates, where if a school, was doing other things and didn't have the capacity, they could just plug and play. And we did the first 2 pilots at Hazelwood and Mary E. Rodman Elementary School, and the design was that every family came in, and we did stations, which is normal for a lot of these literacy nights, but they did stations, and we still have them. It's one of our most popular pieces of collateral. These tip cards. So imagine a 3-ring, just a small, almost like laminated index cards with a hole punch on one of those key rings, and every station had an activity. So, and it told you what the activity was, why it was important, and then you could actually do the activity at the table. So it was like if it was activity about making letter sounds, we had clappers, and there was a person there that could help the parents with helping their kids have the clapper and work through the syllables. So you did that activity, you understood why it connected, and you got the material. So you came, you got the loot, you learned why it was important, and you practiced it. And we took all of that planning and we put it into a toolkit, which is actually available and accessible. It's nobody has to pay for it. It's something we've provided to that the engagement office has done a really excellent job with making sure that the material cost aligns with Title I, and for the justifiable expenses. And it was a really good experience just seeing how we could bring together different offices. When you're working in a district, and I used to work at the district, there's a lot of fires to put out on a daily basis. There's always a lot of initiatives you're trying to push and initiate. So, but sometimes, like the flip side of that is sometimes it's harder to work together, and it's easier sometimes to work siloed. So that's part of what, when we think about workshops and things that we would put on for the community, we're a proponent of making sure that it's not just one group that's doing it. In terms of other workshops, we are in the development stages in working with the Enoch Pratt, and I'm going to turn it over to Ruth in a second because she is the lead on this project. But we want to make sure that Wit and Wisdom, that families can go to the Pratt and they can learn more about just some fun, cool things to do that are connected to the curriculum at the Pratt Library. So in the spring, we're going to be working in partnership with them to put on some family workshops around Wit and Wisdom. So Ruth knows more about that. I'm going to pass it on to her.
Yeah, so exactly what Angelique said. We're hoping in the spring of next year to put on at least one family workshop at least 4 or 5 branches throughout the city. And we're working closely with librarians at those branches to make sure that the families they have relationships now with are coming to those, to make sure it's really something that they'll enjoy and want to come back for, because we hope that it becomes more of a permanent series or program at the Pratt.
That's exciting.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. We want, to be able to help Wit and Wisdom, expand in our, with all the different networks that we have with grade level reading, because we do have a lot of partners, and we see it as a team approach.
I think that that's the only way to do it, is to get like, I think of the community, and I think of you guys like a big bear hug. You're really just like wrapping around and supporting the community and doing that. All of our schools in Baltimore City and all of our, getting all of our families and involved through the community, really through the community resources, and also directly with families. What have you can you tell us more about working with the Pratt Library? Because I think that is a really accessible point that schools who are not in Baltimore, who are listening to this podcast, shout out to Rogers, Arkansas, and Arkansas in general, who's just listening to our podcast. We have a lot of listeners there. But are there any tips that you could give, or just share how you're really just working with the libraries and the librarians to build everyone's knowledge on what's going on in the schools via the curriculum?
Sure. So the first thing I would offer, and hi, Arkansas, would be to figure out who your point person is at whatever the central branch or like the administration is, to get a lay of the land, because a lot of libraries, if they're like Baltimore, have someone who does outreach or community work, be it through a book mobile that goes around or working in schools. So I would make sure so our point person at the Pratt is a person who works on the outreach team, and her job is to make sure that the library lives beyond the walls of the branches. And then so our journey and our partnership with the Pratt started a couple of years ago. So when we started, when grade level reading started to building more partnerships with individual schools, we decided that we wanted to help build home libraries. And this was a couple of years ago, build home libraries for kids in Baltimore. And we worked with the Pratt then to say, hey, like, can you help us curate a really, really good list of books that would be good on grade level, or just really, really interesting books. And then we also worked with the literacy office at city schools to say, hey, can you join us on this project and make sure, like, the Pratt is helping us curate like the books with the awards, but can you help us to make sure that these are books that are appropriate grade level for at that point for first graders. Then we also, in working with them, said, like, it would be really great to get different schools connected with the Pratt, because we have a wonderful public. I think we're one of the first free public library systems in the country. And a lot of our schools were relatively close to Pratt branches, so we said, hey, it'd be really great if your early grade classes and your teachers could build relationships with branch librarians. And get kids to go to the Pratt or facilitate field trips. So a couple of years ago, we laid that groundwork. So for those who are in other cities and jurisdictions, I would say see if you can find out the lay of the land. If there are processes and procedures for, if you're a teacher at X elementary school, do you know how to pick up the phone and call and if your local librarian is willing to come pay your class a visit? They most likely would be really, really love to do that. So, we worked collaboratively with the school district and with the Pratt to try to strengthen those processes, because we are a big district. So we worked together to tighten that up a bit. I would offer that. Anything else that you would offer, Ruth?
So last year we've done several professional developments between Pratt librarians and city schools librarians. And I would say last year it was really, really successful. We brought together, again, Pratt librarians and city school librarians to really delve deep into wisdom and make sure that when they're walking into both or either of those libraries, students and their families are able to have programming or be able to find books that align with that curriculum. And I feel like that was a really good way to build bridges and build relationships between schools and libraries.
Yeah, and I was actually there for that PD, so I can attest to that it was wonderful. And it goes back to like what we were talking about earlier of, when you're thinking about how can we continue to help build our students' knowledge of the world, like what better place to do that than our libraries, right? So I think that relationship and connection is huge and is going to be a great relationship to continue.
About in like year 2, I know we're in year 2 in Baltimore, but in year 2 and year 3, how that community wraparound support is impacting classroom curriculum implementation. Like, how are kids bringing what they're doing at home, as parents are supporting, into the classroom, just to continue to build their knowledge. So you all will have to come back on and tell us about what you're finding.
Yeah, I mean, we love to keep you updated. And if anybody wants to keep up with what we're doing, like, I think our Instagram page is probably the best way to know what the latest is, like with the projects that we're doing around Wit and Wisdom and whatever we're doing with the Pratt, with workshops. We'll be sure to put that on social media. So if you want to follow us on Instagram, we're at Be More Read More.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. We will put your link, or put your Instagram. Is it Instagram? It's not handle. That's Twitter. Instagram.
We're not Instagram savvy.
I know. Your Instagram. Let me do this. Your Instagram information will be found in the show notes.
You can just search Be More Read More, and you should find us on Instagram.
Be more, read more. Okay, perfect. So tell us what is up next for grade level reading. Anything you want to highlight that you're working on, or share with our audience?
So we have a pilot program with a elementary school called Liberty Elementary School here in Baltimore. We have a pilot parent ambassador program, and that's really came out of all of our focus groups and conversations with families, where we had spoken about, like, we saw that families were engaging in networking organically in the room. So we said, why don't we harness that and make it more formal? So the parent ambassador program at Liberty is designed for the parent to be the intermediary, really, between the other families in the class and the teachers, to translate teacher speak and edu speak to families, and to make sure that the critical information about what the kids are working on in school and what they're learning is continuously shared with families in the classroom. So we're really excited about that. We have an awesome set of parents that are helping us. They are amazing. And we're revising these Wit and Wisdom tip sheets in partnership with the district. We're working on the workshops. Those are our marquee projects for the remainder of the school year.
That sounds really exciting.
Super exciting. Do you guys have any last pieces of advice that you would give to families or schools who are just, schools who are looking to work with families more? Any advice that you would give?
I would say listen to your families with no preconceived notions, and to really ask them what their experience has been, and I think Ruth introduced the term to me, to be a critical lover of their feedback. And it's sometimes hard. I think it's sometimes hard to see how you can grow, especially when you're working really, really hard. But I can't, I don't think I can say enough how inspiring working directly with families has been for us. There's a lot of growth happening in Baltimore. There's a lot of energy to strengthen our city, and we have the goods here. So I would just suggest to any schools to, regardless of prior experiences or frustrations with parents not coming out to events, or whatever it is, sit down and I'd encourage you to have one-on-one conversations with them to find out what's going on and what their hopes and dreams are for their kid. And once you start off that way, it opens up the conversation to learn a lot more.
That's great advice. Thank you for that. And I do want to say, because as you were talking, it was making me think that I think that at least one, in my opinion, after speaking with you today, one of the reasons that it has been a really successful partnership is because Baltimore City had adopted a high quality curriculum, and you all wrapped around to support implementation. So I love that the city started with using their research-based practice of adopting that high quality curriculum, and then you all wrapped around to say to parents, like, hey, we're supporting with this curriculum implementation. let's now think about what we can do at home to support that. Because I think that that's a really important thing to highlight, that districts who are listening, I hope that you're listening because you've adopted a high quality curriculum. But if you haven't, that your family, wraparound support, sometimes families might not know and might be pushing for leveled reading at home or things that might not align with the curriculum. So it's our job as the educators to really provide that information and the why behind it, and then provide the really accurate and research-based supports that build that knowledge of topics. Am I making sense, Melissa? You want to add anything to that?
Yeah, no, I think you're right that, it just makes sense for it to be in alignment. And I think that I'm really glad that as a partner to our district, that our grade level reading partners are in alignment and not,
Disalignment.
Yeah, trying to push their own agenda for whatever reason it might be, but their agenda is the same as ours because it's improving literacy. So I think that's really important, is that we do have the same messages and the same goals. So that's really, really crucial.
Yeah. And I felt that because I know I've been to grade level reading meetings when I was in Baltimore, and I always felt like y'all were such good listeners. And I think that was such a key part of it, that you really listened to what was happening in the schools and in the city, and then thought about how you could support. And we really all worked together on that. So I think as much as you're saying, listen to families, just everybody involved being a very good listener about thinking about where the other person or entity or group are coming from and what they need. So I think that's what I wanted to call out as something being really important and special about you all.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're
Can I just say
welcome.
one more thing?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
please.
Yeah, so just again, like the importance of partnerships, I feel like, what I love about working with grade level reading is being able to bring together people who work directly with families and the perspectives they bring. We have people at the table who are parents, people who work in violence prevention and other areas across the city, and it's really important to have diverse perspectives in the room because we know that we can't just have teachers and educators. We have to have people who are touching students and families in other ways. And so I think that that's a really good way to start as well.
That's a good point.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. We are so happy that you took some time to podcast with us today. And for all of our listeners listening, please go and give us 5 stars on whatever forum you're listening on. We would love to get your feedback as well. So if there's any topics that you want to hear us podcast about and we haven't done so far, please drop us a note as you leave us a rating. We read them and we would love to hear. Melissa, anything to add about
Just don't forget
about our website?
Well, I was gonna promote our Be More Read More friends.
Oh yeah. Okay. No, that's good.
Literacy podcast mostly on Twitter, but you can find us on all the social media.
Yeah. And tell us about Be More, Read More.
Well, I would follow us on Instagram. That's where our coolest content is. We also have a Facebook page and a Twitter page. Yeah, and they're the same. Or if you want to go to our website, which will link you to all of our social media, that's grade-level-reading-baltimore.org.
Awesome.
Well, thank
you. Guys are
We are so
amazing.
happy that you
doing such good work
came today. Yes.
Thanks for the invite.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you. Take
Thank
care.
you guys.
Bye.
Bye.